The two latest victims of France's bloody, drawn-out war against jihadists in Mali. They were killed in Menaka, a northeastern region of the country, when a blast blew up the vehicle they were travelling in. In a statement, the office of French President Emmanuel Macron said he had learnt of their deaths with great sadness, but vowed to keep up the fight against terrorism in Mali. The attack is yet another body blow to French military operations in the country. It comes barely a week after 3 soldiers were killed in the central region of Hombori in almost identical circumstances. That attack, along with the latest one, brings to 50 the number of French soldiers killed in Mali since France intervened in 2013. Back then, French soldiers were greeted with cheers as they fought to drive back jihadists that had overrun large parts of the country. A year later, Operation Barkhane was launched across the Sahel region with the aim of eradicating armed jihadist groups.
On the first anniversary of the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani, Iranian officials were defiant. They say the legacy of the Quds Force commander would live on, and the Islamic Republic's revenge for the killing is not over yet.
Expelling the Americans definitively from the region would be one of the manifestations of our harsh revenge. The punishment of the perpetrators of this crime and those who ordered it would be another manifestation of this harsh revenge.
There have been unusual military deployments by the US in the region recently. American B-52 bombers flew over the Middle East twice in December. A US submarine carrying guided cruise missiles also passed through the Strait of Hormuz last week. The United States says it is not seeking conflict, and the deployments are to deter any potential adversary.
The assassination of Iran's top nuclear scientist, Mohsen Farizadeh, in late November increased tensions in the Middle East and threatens to complicate U.S. policy towards Iran. President-elect Joe Biden says he would like to return the U.S. to the 2015 Iran nuclear deal if Tehran returns to compliance. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has made withdrawing from the pact and applying maximum pressure on Tehran the cornerstone of U.S. policy towards the Middle East, labeling the Obama administration's diplomacy with Tehran appeasement.
With the help of our Gulf allies, our maximum pressure campaign isolated Iran diplomatically, militarily, and economically.
India happens to be the second worst affected nation due to the coronavirus, and now the fight against the COVID-19 infection has received a shot in the arm, quite literally. Now, the Indian drug controller has approved 2 vaccines against coronavirus for emergency use, the Oxford and AstraZeneca's Covishield and also Bharat Biotech's Covaxin are the 2 that have been given the approval by the Indian regulators against the coronavirus.
Illegal immigrants, beware. The SANDF will be deploying helicopters to hover above the Limpopo River, and the SAPS will be in boats. This is according to the Home Affairs Minister. He's been inspecting the Beitbridge border, where he saw dozens of Zimbabweans trying to make their way illegally into South Africa.
Some of the people that have entered the country from Zimbabwe are being taken into these police inyala, we understand, to be deported back via the Beitbridge border post. The issue here is not having the required documentation, the passport, or having conducted that COVID-19 test. On site at the Beitbridge border post, where it's much calmer, there are mobile clinics to conduct those tests.
I've given an instruction. That cannot be. That person must be returned. He's a fraudster. You can't just come with a fraudulent document and they look at it and smile and say, hey, oh, it's fraudulent. Let's test you again. It can't happen that way.
Dense bushland in an unfolding recovery mission. The desperate search for two missing canyoners entering its second day and ending in tragedy.
Police rescue, assisted by police diving unit and ambulance special operations team, have located both women drowned in the river.
The pair were part of a group of 10 on a day trip canyoning in what's known as the Wollongambie 1 track near Mount Wilson in the Upper Blue Mountains. They struck trouble around 12:30 yesterday. This is Senior Constable Kelly Foster, her final act one of immense bravery. The off-duty officer risked her life in an attempt to save the young international student, but both were pulled underwater. Senior Constable Foster's partner was canyoning with the group. He had to hike 45 minutes from the canyon to sound the alarm.
This incident happened 2 weeks ago. This teenager was running away from police along with his friends after they were throwing rocks at Palestinian cars in the West Bank. He belongs to a group, an outlawed group among the settler community known as the Hilltop Youth. And they were throwing rocks, as mentioned, on Palestinian cars. Then they were chased by police, and then in an accident which took place, this kid, a 16-year-old, Ahuvia Sandak, he was killed. Those are the facts. As of now on, there's a throw of responsibility as to who's responsible for his death. The settlers claim that it's police. They chased him and basically led to his death. On the other hand, police are saying that yes, while they were holding a chase following this car, it was driven by people without a driver's license, and eventually the car turned over. If they'd only stopped at the police checkpoint, none of this would have happened. This happened 2 weeks ago. Ever since, we see almost daily protests outside police headquarters in the main headquarters in Jerusalem.
A sign of relief and of new shelter. This will be home for hundreds of migrants and refugees stranded in Bosnia-Herzegovina's Lipa camp, near its northwest border with Croatia. The military set up tents to shield hundreds of migrants from the winter's freezing weather, after days of sleeping out in the cold. The nation faced mounting criticism for leaving the migrants without proper shelter, heat, or facilities. For days, there were cries for help. Earlier this week, migrants and refugees went on a hunger strike. Amid reports of frostbite and hypothermia, they held a protest to bring attention to their poor living conditions. Most of the camp was destroyed in late December, when police say occupants deliberately set a fire to protest the scheduled closure and lack of alternatives.
Carlos Cristobal Marquez owns one of Havana's most successful private restaurants, a must even for the most high-profile visitors. Until now, his customers paid in cucs or CUCs, a state-invented substitute for the US dollar, worth 25 times more than the Cuban peso. But now, the cuc is being scrapped, and with it, an unsustainable dual currency and exchange rate system.
It just means the elimination of a currency that was circulating for a long time and reactivating our national currency, the peso.
If only it were that simple. And that's the perfect way to describe the risky elimination of Cuba's second currency. While it's considered to be hard currency, it's in fact worthless outside of Cuba, hindering exports and desperately needed investments.
Rescue teams continued the search for survivors in Norway on Saturday, 4 days after a landslide carried homes down a hill in a village northeast of Oslo. At least 4 bodies have been recovered so far, but another 6 people are still missing. Over 1,000 people have been evacuated, but officials are worried the fragile ground could cause further landslides, meaning many more may have to leave. The search teams are using helicopters, drones and heat-seeking equipment amid hopes that survivors may remain in air pockets inside the destroyed buildings. But the rescue operation is being hampered by limited daylight hours here, and that hope is running out fast.